Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. All right. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents Podcast. We are super blessed, super excited, very humbled to have Mr. Bryan Underwood on the recording or on our show today. Bryan, how's it going, man?
I'm well, Abel. How are you doing today, man? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for asking. I'm really excited that we finally get together and record a good conversation because I've known you, Bryan, for some period of time. We're in a really great mastermind, and that's kind of how I got connected to Bryan, and he's been doing some amazing things. So I'm pleased to have you as a guest. I know you're going to drop some really good wisdom for our listeners and motivation, inspiration along the way too. Your story is inspiring. Just knowing a little bit more about you, man. So I'm excited to hear. So for those that don't know Bryan, he's a third generation San Diegan, a third generation real estate developer as well. So he's got an interesting background. We'll let him, tell a story, but the president of Responsible Real Estate, they're a San Diego based real estate investment and brokerage company, and also the principal of Responsible Residential, which is a San Diego based residential development company. And, talking to Bryan a little bit, we're excited to hear he's done, overall been involved in about $60 million plus of land acquisition, 1.5 million, square footage of self-storage entitlements and development. So that's some serious numbers. And, you've got a lot of experience, like you said, third generation. So Bryan, thank you again for having, for coming on the show. And then why don't you just start off, in your own words, who are you? What are you doing? And we'll dive into a great conversation.
Yeah, awesome, Abel. I appreciate it, man. You make it sound so big. I guess just through the process, and some diligence, you're able to be involved in some big numbers. I appreciate that. I'm very humbled to have participated and been a part of the land acquisitions and the self-storage development. So, yeah, like you said, man, I'm third generation San Diegan, third generation real estate developer here. I am extremely blessed that I have a family business that focuses on self-storage development. But that's not how I got into real estate. I got into real estate in a totally different way. I was like anybody else, I had a job, but my first real quote unquote job, I was selling women's shoes at Nordstrom, and it was awesome, man. It was a fantastic job, but I also looked to my left and to my right, and I was probably the youngest person on the floor, about 20 years old, 20 to 21. And I was making more money than most of those people because we get our sales numbers. So I'm looking to my left and my right, and I'm going, okay, good job. I'm making great money at 21 years old, but this is not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, right?
There will be no Al Bundy here.
No.
Whenever I hear selling women's shoes, my head always goes to me.
Yeah.
Anyways,
oh man, I got that so many times.
You're aging us a little bit. Aging us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. So I got an invitation from a friend of mine. He's a great guy, creative guy, interesting guy, that he was into power electronics and sold his business And this was kind of just, like 2004, 2005. So real estate was, absolutely booming. And he was doing his first real estate project in La Mesa. And he said, hey, why don't you come, kind of be my apprentice? And I thought, well, shoot, what I know about real estate and what the family was involved in, I piqued my interest, right? So I went to go work for this guy, and he was pseudo retired, right? So he wanted to start businesses around around things that he liked. So he wanted to start a wine bar, and he wanted to do like an adventure rental business. And I thought, man, all that stuff sounds really cool. And there's business aspects involved, things that I'm not doing right now that I can learn from, because this guy just sold a pretty big business and had some money to invest. And so I sat for the very first time in meetings with architects and civil engineers for this condo project. And I just fell in love, just absolutely fell in love. I'm like, this is the stuff right here. So I started reading books. I said, okay, well, let me get my salesperson license, so, then I can maybe learn how to look at property, I was looking at tools, what tools are available. Yeah. I started asking my questions, Abel. I started looking around and going, well, how does somebody say, that building or that piece of dirt is worth $500,000, right? Where do they come up with those numbers? And so, man, I just dug the best that I possibly could, and just, any bit of research I can get my hand on, and just learning like crazy. And I found a piece of property. It's my first real estate deal. Okay. I found a piece of property in Santee, and it was 16,000 square feet. So a real small piece, zoned light industrial, but it had houses all around it. And it was donated to the YMCA. They wanted $250,000. And so we made them an offer for $150,000, and they accepted it. And so the guy that I was, apprenticing under, he said, well, yeah, let's buy this and we could build an industrial spec building. And I said, fantastic. I said, how much do I need? He's like, well, you want to invest? I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, well, it's me and a friend of mine. Why don't you put in $50,000? Well, I didn't have $50,000. Yeah. I said, so I went to my mom, and I sat down with my mom, and I just learned how to do back of the napkin pro forma. Yeah. From reading one of my books. And I took out my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I said, Mom, I need to borrow $50,000, and here's what we're going to do. Right. Like with all the confidence in the world. Right. Yeah, and, so I show her, we're going to build this spec building, and we're going to, it's going to be 7,500 square feet, and this is how I pay you back. Anyway, long story shorter is we ended up selling that piece of property, because like 6 months later, we got an offer for $425,000, and we paid $150 for it. Right. Holy now, moly. Yeah, times were good, right?
I may have missed this, but your mom, she did fund you. She did fund you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Man, thankfully she's one of my biggest supporters, and thankfully she was ignorant, right? She just didn't know. She just wanted to support me.
She trusted it. Well, yeah. It's not about trust in this, this particular story. It's more of, knowing you didn't know what you didn't know, but you had success, man. That's great. So that was kind of your first investor.
That's it. A rising tide lifts all boats, and the commercial real estate world at that point, real estate world in general, was just, it was booming. So, I'll take that. Right. I mean, it was like a point in time that I was like, okay, I paid my mom back. I gave her some, the interest that I said I was going to give her, after all the fees and everything, $70,000 were sitting in my bank. And I was like, all right, how do we do that again? I was just like, I was floored, right?
And what age was this?
And so this was in 2005. So I was like 20, 25, 26.
Okay. So relatively quick.
24, 25. Yeah.
Yeah. Relatively
24,
quick
25.
That made that decision from selling shoes to say, I'm going to go do it. Okay. So I'm following. This is a great story.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. I just went, I was like, man, I was all in, right? I'm like, I loved every bit of this. I loved, the pursuit, the finding the deal, the contract is like my first contract. Right? I mean, everything about it I loved. And this is when I was helping him with his real estate deal. So Santee, we had just sold, and I sat back and it was like, okay, how do I do that again? What's my next step? And at that point, the city of La Mesa actually got sued. California is known for environmental groups, and they didn't like the way that the city did updated their general plan. And so the condo project in Santee happened to be one of 7 that had to go, basically a pause. And so what it did is like, here's me learning, I'm active, I'm moving. And then the projects I was working on just came to a halt. And I was like, man, okay, that's a bummer. But at the same time, what's the next step? And my next step was twofold. Call the family and let them know what you're doing. And 2, I wanted to go back and finish school because I never actually got my college degree. I went to school for 2 years, and then I went into selling shoes because I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with my life, right? So I had 2 years left of school, and I went through National University, and they had a business program, and they had a concentration in entrepreneurship. And I thought, man, this is cool, but I don't want to go to school for 2 years, right? So I told them, I said, I need to fast track this somehow. And they said, well, you can take 2 classes per month. You can do 1 on site and 1 online, but you can only do that 3 months out of the year, like 3 out of the 12 months. I said, well, I want to do, I want to, that doesn't work for me. So how do I do it every month? Right. Cause I wanted to finish in a year. And they said, well, write a letter to the dean. So I did. And he said, as long as you keep a 3.75 GPA, then you can take as many classes as you want. I don't care. So I finished my 22 months in 13 months. Mm-hmm. And at that same time is when I called the family up for the very first time. And I said, this real estate stuff, I love. And I just happen to have a family business that does this stuff. And I want some. I mean, in short, I want in. And, if you know a little bit about my family, it's kind of like tough love. So it wasn't necessarily a come in with open arms, we'll take care of you. It was, you don't know what you're doing. Don't waste our time. And what you'll learn about me is I don't really take no for an answer. That's just like, well, maybe I'm not explaining myself correctly. That's what I hear. So,
it certainly seems like that in your story thus far, Bryan. You're like, man, let's figure out how to get through it. Yeah. What's the next step?
Well, a no is whatever I think of it as like whatever I just said to you, you heard something different or interpreted it different, because what I'm proposing shouldn't be a no. It should be a conversation at the very least. Right. Yeah. So what I had said to is my uncle, his name is also Bryan, as I said, okay, how about you just give me a trial period, right? Let me work for you for 6 months. And I was going to work under a guy named Tyler Exler, who's one of my mentors today. And I'm going to work for him, and he's in acquisitions. He ran the acquisitions department. And in 6 months from today, you go ask Tyler. And if I'm wasting his time, I'll walk away. But if I'm not wasting his time, then, I'd love to stay and learn and, be a part of the team. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was that, obviously I got in, I worked for the family, and 6 months later, I checked the box and I was able to stay. Right. Yeah. And I was there for 10 years, man. I worked there for 10 years.
Man, 10 years. Well, yeah, you went from, can I get into like, you're a staple. You better, hopefully we're not leaving the company anytime soon, which I know, I know the end of the punchline there is he eventually did, but. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. Tell us about the roles. Like, okay, let's just, in a quick rundown. How did, what kind of roles did you have in those 10 years? What'd you start at? What'd you move to?
Yeah. So, I started essentially as like an intern.
Okay.
And this was kind of like 2007. This would be my trial period. And,
yes.
It was like right before the crash. It was actually end of 2007 was like a trial period. And then I started working in 2008, which was very interesting time. So it was like intern, but it was like acquisitions, right? So, my first assignment from Tyler, my boss, was, he gave me his printout of, it was like, his 10-page cash flow, pro forma. And he said, create this on Excel. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know what Excel was. Right. Yeah. Anyway, it took me 3 weeks, but, thanks for Google and the YouTubes of the world. Right. I recreated his pro forma. It took me 3 weeks, and then he gave me a deal to underwrite, and I was within, like 10 bips of his pro forma. So he's like, okay, cool. Okay. Now don't use yours, use mine. But at least I knew the ins and outs of it. Right.
Yeah.
Which was tons of fun. But it was all, the 10 years were all in acquisitions. It was actually funny. So Tyler's a pretty big guy, and he's tall, just a big dude, and can be intimidating. People say he's really grumpy and, don't talk to Tyler. And I didn't know any difference. My first day, he said, come in my office. And he like slammed the door. He's like kind of trying to create some fear, I guess, slams the door, sits down. He's like, what are you doing here? Right. And I'm going, I want to work in acquisitions. He's like, well, I don't know you. I don't know how we work together. I don't know how sophisticated you are. Real estate's a whole new language. Do you even understand the terms? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm here to learn. I certainly not want to waste your time. I'm here to learn. He's like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, I'm going to be sitting in your chair. And he got so pissed. He's like, that's the most arrogant, crazy, like the worst comment you could say. Like, how dare you say you're gonna be sitting in my chair in 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And I just let him. I just listened. And I looked at him and I said, well, Tyler, I'm learning from the best, aren't I? Because he's my direct superior. Like, I'm learning from him. And he kind of smiled, sat down, and honestly, like, we've been best friends ever since. Like, he's my mentor, right?
Yeah.
Tons of fun. So I was able to, fortunate enough to sit in his office through the downturn, and there was not a whole lot going on, but we looked at thousands of deals. And we would talk about, capital markets, and we would talk macro, micro, you name it, right? And kind of talking about all the what ifs, right? Okay, well, if you had, $100 million sitting in your bank account, what would you be doing with it right now? Would you be like that guy in the Bible, right, that buries it in the sand? We didn't say it in those words, but that's what comes to mind, when I picture that. Or would you go put it to work? And so we make up all these hypotheticals, which was cool because like years later, we got to have that conversation again. And of course, I'm totally ignorant, right? I don't know the cycles. I'm not bruised like these guys are. I'm fresh. And I'm looking at all of these self-storages out there in 2009 and 10 that were like, financially, it made no sense, right? To buy this thing for like $4 million, because you're going, I'm not really making that much on my money. But one thing that we were overlooking at that point was you couldn't go rebuild any of those stores for the price that they were trading at. They were trading at so far below replacement costs. It was staggering. And I remember having that conversation with Tyler. I'm like, Tyler, what would it cost to build one of these things? He's like, I don't know. I mean, probably, maybe it's $6 million. I'm like, well, they're selling it for $4 million. He's like, yeah, but it doesn't make any financial sense. I'm like, I know, but we're in it for the long haul, right? We don't need to make money tomorrow, but fast forward 10 years, we might be in a good position. Anyway, I just happened to be right. And I'm not saying I'm right all the time, man. I'm wrong a lot of the times. I like to have good conversations with people, but in that particular case, I remember making offers on stuff for like $4 million and they wanted like $5 million. And, in like a 24-month period, that same store was trading for 15. Yeah. I mean, it was like mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. So, our game in the family business, Abel, wasn't existing stores or necessarily even opportunities. One of the family was focused 100% on buying land or tear downs and developing new products. So when I left, we had 58 self-storages. Out of the 58 self-storages, 4 of them were existing that we had purchased for all of them have their own story. But the rest of them were ground up development opportunities. I mean, that's what the family did, and that's what they were focused on. And so really going from the intern to then, full blown acquisitions, working under Tyler. Tyler retired in 2012, and then I became the manager. So I was right. And I was sitting in his chair in 5 years, which is funny. So I'm sitting in his chair, in 2012, and, I felt so blessed to have such a great team around me, sharpening my skill set, challenging me to get better. But, there did come a time sort of transitioning, Abel. There did come a time where I just felt like, this isn't right for me anymore. And mainly because I'm focused on growth. If I'm not growing professionally, if I'm not growing spiritually, if I'm not growing with my wife and my family, personally, then it's time to replace that. It's time to move on. It's time to pivot or do something a little bit different. Yeah. And, go ahead.
I am like, I guess you saw me rearing up before you get into this transition period, because I do want to dig into it. Right. I think it's a great one. There's a couple of things I want to highlight, like even for our listeners, it's, first, quickly realized, look to your left, look to your right. This is not what I want to do. You can figure out your paycheck pretty quickly. It sounds like you were a top performer, even back then. And you said, hey, you have to make the decision to move. And what I think that was a good point, because you're not, none of us are trees. We can literally get up and move our situation. And I hear so many people that are upset or tired or irritated or frustrated with their job, because I end up talking to a lot of people that say, hey, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be in real estate. I'm tired of my job. I'm like, okay, well, cool. But they, if you're tired of your job, no one's keeping you there. You can leave at any given time.
That's it.
Right? So that's the first one. I think I recognized early on your story. And then, okay, so fighting to get in, your first, even before the business, your first deal, most people would look at this thing and say, like, I don't have 50 grand. There's no way to get it. So yeah, you did lean to mom as the first investor. However, some people would, if she would have said no, I have a feeling you're the type of person that would have figured out how to find it one way or the other. And, doing that, it's like, okay, you come out with 70K in your bank account, which, in your 20s is pretty nuts to have it all at one time. And that's an amazing kind of feat. But then realizing, make the decision early. This is where I'm going to go. Fighting to get in your family business. Again, nothing handed to you. And then I heard thousands of transactions. So, let's talk about this for a moment, right? Most people, when I see them kind of getting in, and this was me too, I'm speaking to myself, which is I looked at a pro forma, or I looked at the financial analysis, not being a financial, finance kind of background guy. That's just not me or how I was kind of built. it took me a while to kind of say, oh, I think I gotta get it. Profit and loss, income, expenses, projection in the future. Here's many multiple tabs because this thing has assumptions all over the place. Any number of these things could change, right? So
Yep.
you kind of took that first cycle 3 weeks to break out your first one. So anybody that's listening, like even that alone, like it may take you a month to get figure out your first one, but some people would stop after 5 or 6 hours, and you
Yeah.
didn't, and push past the 5 or 6, 8 hours, push past 10 hours, push past 2 days, 5 days, 3 weeks, and eventually it's like, okay, I got it. And then the repetition of thousands of transactions. So these are
Yep.
those things that most people don't account for today. Because when we break into your story, Bryan, we're going to talk about all this good stuff, right? You've kind of laid in the foundation. I just want to make sure our listeners here, like, these are the things that, you want to get $60 million of transactions. Like, this is kind of foundation. So anyways,
So
before you
yeah,
move.
let me piggyback on that just real quick and expand on that thousands because you're absolutely right. I mean, so the family sort of the mantra and the way forward and the goals every year, right? The goals every year were literally summed up in buy the best two pieces of property that we can find in a given year. Okay. Two, buy the best two. And I can tell you, this is pretty high level, but I've thought a lot about this after doing it for so long. Two properties required me to go through probably, maybe it's like 2,000 deals. Okay. And out of the 2,000 deals, I probably wrote letters of intent on maybe 50, okay, out of the 2,000. And out of the letter of intent that actually moved to, a contract sort of negotiation, I would say out of the 50, there was probably 12. And out of those 12, we probably bought two. So, I mean, that's kind of you're going through 2,000 to like 50 enough to make a letter of intent. And out of the 50, you might move to a contract of 12, and sort of start your due diligence. But out of those 12, two are the ones that you actually end up buying, for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it is deal flow. When you say deal flow, that's deal flow.
Yeah. So I talked to about, many multiple people that are trying to get in on their first deal, or maybe they've gotten in one, but they're trying to get the second one. And, I kind of think they're shocked a little bit. I'm shocked a little bit about the thousands of transactions, because I thought, well, shoot, I got to look through at least 100 of these things to kind of find one and, put an offer. And sometimes I win it, sometimes I don't. But, thousands of transactions is definitely at a different kind of level. But you're still like, you're sorting and trying to find the deal that actually works, as opposed to setting yourself up for a rough go. If you overpay for this property, you're going to set yourself up. It's way easier to feel the pain of underwriting that many than to feel the pain of getting in a bad deal. So
100%, Abel, 100%. Life is too stinking short, man. If you're kidding yourself, I mean, I can make a pro forma look however you want it to look like, right? I mean, you often hear, numbers don't lie. I can make them lie any which way I want to. I can make anything look as good as you want it to look, right? But, really diving into those assumptions. So, I mean, if you're the one actively doing that research and doing the underwriting, right? I mean, don't lie to yourself, right? I mean, don't lie to yourself. Like, be confident in those assumptions, because, that's when you're really going to find the deal that you're confident enough to go through. Yeah. If you've got, man, a lot of times it's, you might have some gut feeling about one thing or another, and just trust it. Because life's too stinking short to get into a bad deal. It just is. There's plenty of deals to go around. Just keep looking. I will also say that, I think we all have just some unreal potential in us. All of us do. And I think that most of us don't really tap into that potential because, you know, it's really two things. I mean, it's like fear and acceptability. Those are kind of the two things. That's how I sum it up. It's like, you know, I don't know, you know, step 10, so I'm not going to take step 1. That's junk, dude. No one knows step 10. We're all trying to figure it out. But if you know step 1, take it, and then step 2 will come. But the more you just sit in your chair and not do anything and you know, just hypothecate to yourself, you know, you're not going to do anything. So for your listeners that are just, you know, sitting, I'm not saying make dumb decisions, make good decisions, but stop sitting in your chair. Take the next step, because man, if we had more people taking that next step, you know, this world would be in an awesome place. You know, throw the fear and throw that, you know, whatever the acceptability that you have in your head, it's trash, man. Throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a number of things that you had to overcome, and so let's, you know, if I could fast forward a little bit, you ultimately came to a decision to say, do I keep working with the company or moving? Right. So tell us a little bit about that and tell us about this mindset.
So hardest decision I've made to date, hands down, was leaving what is basically as secure as security gets. I think a lot of people are out there looking for, you know, the job that I had. And hopefully I put enough color around the family business and some personalities for listeners to realize just because I was family didn't mean I necessarily had a secure job there. I was treated like all other employees, as I should have been. I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do. That was absolutely the right thing to do. But the point is, I was in a good position. I was finding deals. And I was in a position where literally I didn't have to worry about a paycheck, and I didn't really have to worry about my wealth always growing. Two really good things that I think a lot of people are striving for. But I was dying inside, absolutely dying. Okay, so after you kind of think about the 10,000 hour rule or whatever you want to call it, after you do something for so stinking long with repetition like that, and I was basically only allowed to buy 2 deals a year, I could do that literally sleeping. Literally, I could do it in my sleep, you know. And that was just a lot of stinking work and repetition to get to that point. So I was exploring with the family, like, how does Bryan, you know, in the family business and the structure that the family business has, like, how do I sort of keep growing, right? How do I take what we have and maybe launch a complementary business or be involved in some other stuff that I could keep growing in? And unfortunately, you know, that wasn't, it became clear over a period of time that wasn't going to happen. And so I was forced to make a decision. I either live within the confines of the family business and keep my head down and I'm going to be fine in 20 years type of mentality, or, you know, it's time for me to rotate out and do something different. And again, hardest decision I made in my life, but I look at it like I was ultimate security with no potential. I traded it for extreme amount of risk, but unlimited potential. And I made that jump in 2017. I will highlight though, that part of, you know, I mean, it was a tough transition, but you know, before I left, there was sort of estate planning like put in place. And I was the guy tapped to, you know, take the helm to run the family business. I'm not going to put a number on it, but it's, you know, it's 58 stores. It's over 40,000 units. I mean, it's all in California. It's a substantial business. And they said, you know, you're going to run it. And I kindly said, not for me. No, thank you. I need to go do what God's calling me to do, period. And that's grow. I think God's calling all of us to grow. So I transitioned out and I started a company. A lot of thought and process went into the name and how we would start it. But basically, the Responsible Real Estate, you know, it's not my company, it's God, dude. I just get to shepherd it. He gave me the vision for it, and it's based off of Galatians 5:13. So Galatians 5:13, we're called to live in freedom. Brothers and sisters, don't use your freedom to serve your selfish desires. Use your freedom to serve one another in love and I add so they can grow. And so I thought about that, and I thought about, responsible real estate. I thought that was cool. It has some buzzwords to it. And I said, people are going to think, it's kind of like do the right thing. But I looked at it as like, if you break up the word responsible, it's like your responsibility. Okay. So your responsibility, if I respond to situations, right, my respond could determine if it's fruitful or unfruitful, and if it's unfruitful, then change it. But the whole point is, the more that I respond to the situations, the more and engage with people, the more that we all grow. And so that's kind of where the responsible real estate comes from. And then, I just kind of now we have a real estate development arm, and we call that responsible residential. And we're building out a capital raising arm. We call it responsible equity. So, kind of all the same meaning, but we launched that in June 2017, responsible real estate.
All right, man. Congratulations. And what an amazing kind of run. Just to kind of recap these things. You had the position or seat, whatever you want to call it. You were going to be the individual that took the helm of a pretty massive California business. And I say California because I'm in Texas, so the price per square foot is a little different over there. So when you say some of these numbers, different from Texas real estate to California. So, I would say that's, one of those things where it kind of sounds like you had it in your mind, this is what I'm going to go do, and this is why. And, no matter how big the prize may have been, you realize I need to be happy. I need to do it the way I want to do it. And, try to live this new direction. And then you took the leap, so all the things that were in your mind, let's go dive forward, and you made it happen. So that's amazing. You recognize, God through it, right? It's, that's the reason, sole reason I've had the success I've had. And I like the way you say it. It's like, hey, that's the servitude part of it. And I've got to go serve. So, that's amazing, man. I was just thinking about this earlier. Somebody put a post on service, and I go, yeah, I'm here to serve the Lord. And there's all these things that I want to do. Most of them, they're my desires, wants, needs, all these things. And I'm like, that's probably not what he wants. So, and if I keep focused on him, all those other things actually get met anyways. Like, it's funny how all this stuff works out.
Yeah, totally. Well, I want, we both think alike. I mean, that's how we found each other in the mastermind. So, and I think there are probably a lot of listeners, if they don't, listen up, but, that think along these lines is, I want more than anything, I want to be in his plan, and I want to be, I want to be used as his vessel, how he sees me. He made us for a reason. He made us with unique gifts, and and I want to work, where with the gifts he gave me, and and ultimately reveal his character through the products that we create, which is really fun to do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for sharing. And your deal, I'll say, I saw a post the other day, maybe, as we're wrapping up to the end, you're on this big, nice piece of land, and you're like, hey, we're about to break ground, and we're freaking there. So tell us about this project really quick before we go. And then, we'll end kind of on this note, man. Tell me what you're doing today.
Yeah, good. So there's a few things that we're focused on, but really most of it is all around multifamily development, Abel. So I live in San Diego, and most of the projects I'm involved in are in San Diego. And sort of a quick a quick stat on San Diego. I mean, we could build 110,000 new multifamily units over the next 5 years and still not catch up with demand. I mean, we are so underserved here. It's crazy. And it's also one of those products coming from self-storage that most people don't want to see new self-storages added in their market. A lot of people now recognize the need for more housing, and the cities have come alongside that use for new development and gave you a little bit of tailwinds. Doesn't make it easy, but they gave you a little bit of tailwinds to try to get some deals done. And so we're focused on adding to the much needed supply here in San Diego. My first deal has a story in and of itself, so I can't get into that because I know we're short on time. But that has a God story. I was actually brokering the deal. I don't know how many brokers out there bought your own deal, but I was one of them. And it was I was actually putting together a joint venture, and then the joint venture fell apart. And God was tugging on me, saying, "This is your deal. You're gonna go build homes." Through a lot of things that shouldn't have taken place, I bought it. And I basically called a few family members and said, "Here's the deal." From all the self-storage stuff, I now know how to pitch deals. I know what matters, right? So I put together a package and I showed them and I said, here's the deal. Here's what we're going to do. And so that project was a $1.5 million equity raise. We raised it, we bought the land, and took us 12 months to get from the time we purchased the land to process all of the building permits, offsite improvements, and grading plan. And we broke ground November, I think it was 16th actually is when we broke ground. So under construction, it's 10 townhomes, and we plan to rent them out. We think it's a terrific rental product. And then we've got two more coming up. We've got two properties in North Park area here in San Diego. It's a 30-unit multifamily and a 100-unit multifamily. And then I have my first property under contract in Boise, Idaho. I love that market and I love the growth. And that, like San Diego, is one of those markets that need townhomes and apartments. And they don't have a whole lot of people up there doing townhomes and apartments. And so I have my first property under contract there. And that's a 68-unit project. So,
right.
Man, a lot of movement, a lot of stuff happening, man.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Find the land, get it entitled, raise some capital. Let's freaking do the grading and drainage, and let's get after it, right? Let's go.
Yeah.
And then start your vertical. And then on those, deals, you said 30 unit, 100 unit, 68 unit. So it's definitely steamrolling right now. And in some period of time, I saw you and your family pictures. I hope your family has the same struggle somewhere down the line to say, "Oh, I don't know if I should ask Bryan if I can join the family business, man." So I wish you nothing but a lot of success and through that and through the journey, my friend. So that's awesome. Well, before we go, what is your if our listeners, somebody wants to get into your world, learn a little bit more about what you're doing, invest
Sure.
or partner or something with you over there in San Diego, where should we reach out?
Yeah, best way to find me is on my website, www.responsibleRE.com. And you can join an email list. You can book a call. You can call my cell or email me directly. Happy to get in touch. Yes, we are actively raising money for one of the North Park projects, and then the other North Park and the Boise are a little bit further behind, but those will be coming down the pike here real soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. And is there anything we didn't talk about today that you really wanted to bring some exposure to? So like something I didn't ask about, something you forgot to mention, just any of those last insights. I want to make sure we give you a few minutes too.
I did touch on it a little bit. I just, as listeners hear from you, they hear from me, they hear from a lot of other people. I mean, there's a lot of places to get information these days. And I'm not unlike any of you guys. I don't have it figured out. I'm exploring. None of us have it figured out, So if you hear or talk to somebody or hear from somebody, it seems like, man, they just made money overnight. They just got lucky. Nothing could be further from the truth, man. Everybody put their time in, had a lot of diligence, and became really good at what they're doing. And so I just, encourage people to just start, take that next step. Don't wait. Whether that is, passively, investing in one of Abel's deals, passively investing in one of my deals, going and finding, your first home to buy. I don't care what it is. If you're interested, man, just get moving, find a mentor and get moving. I mean, that's the greatest thing you can do for you, your family, and your future kids if you don't have them.
All right. I love it. Thank you very much. This is an awesome show, Bryan, just really real with us and your story. And I'm sure there are multiple people that can relate to, the ups and downs and all arounds. And for you on your side, very inspiring and encouraging for those listeners that are on the other side. And if you're like Bryan said, if you're thinking about it, it's just, you don't have to know the 10th step, just take the first step. And that's awesome. So Bryan, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And again, my name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show. If there was some value that you got from it, I would encourage you also, we'd love you to subscribe, rate, and review, leave a written review for our show. It really helps us in the ratings, and make sure we can have some amazing guests like Bryan in the future. So thank you very much. Later, Bryan.
See you, brother.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.